This episode is a live recording of my artist talk at the 92nd Street Y. Welcome to the Painter's Dialectic Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Green, a painter and art educator living in New York City. And today's episode is a live recording at the 92nd Street Y at the Gilda and Henry Block School of the Arts. This was my artist talk titled Self-Realization Through Artistic Expression, a Painterly Perspective. It was held on June 20th, 7 to 8 p.m. in S101. What good is art? Why do we keep doing it? In this third Thursday Artist Talk, join Art Center faculty and painter Josh Green to discuss the purpose behind his painting practice and the benefits art can offer us all. Artist and art educator Josh Green shares his perspective on the ultimate good in art, self-realization through self-expression. The arts allow us to gain self-knowledge by offering moments of expression and reflection. Many of us never create time for reflection and lose all our energy to worries and responsibilities. Art allows us time to discover our true nature in this brief existence, something many never take the time to do. Thank you to Sienna Fagan for organizing the event, and thank you to the 92nd Street Y. I've really enjoyed my time teaching there. And if you'd like to help support the show, be sure to like, subscribe, share our content, leave comments. All of that is free ways to help support the show. If you'd like to financially support us, you can do that through the Patreon page or directly through Spotify, and I think Applecast now you can do that. And if you'd like to contact me, you could reach out to the Y and take my classes. You could also sign up for classes on greenatelier.art. You could check out my website, joshgreenart.com. And if you'd like to check out my Instagram page, it's Josh Green Artist.
I'm the program manager here at the Art Center, and I curate and organize these artist talks. They are a way for us to celebrate our incredible faculty, hopefully introduce people to new ways of thinking about art, opportunity to talk about art. I know a lot of us spend a lot of time making art, and maybe we spend less time thinking about why it is that we make art. So when Josh told me the title of this talk, I was thrilled because I asked that question a lot myself. Josh is a relatively new faculty member here, but he has made quite an impact. He teaches tons of classes, right?
6
Painting,
classes.
meditation, drawing from the imagination, figure drawing, a classical approach,
Figure
figure
sculpture,
sculpture, artistic anatomy.
I think that's it.
Okay,
Beginner drawing.
Beginner drawing. So he's incredibly talented, he's incredibly thoughtful, and I am so excited to learn more about his practice, how he thinks about his work. We'll have about a 45-minute conversation, and then there'll be an opportunity to do a little bit of a Q&A. If you enjoy this talk, consider signing up for Josh's classes. Josh, you're teaching this summer, right?
Yeah.
So we've got some summer catalogs over there if you're interested in taking a look. It's a great way to spend the summer. We also will have our fall classes going on sale in a couple weeks, July 17th. We'll have another series of artist talks in the fall featuring jewelers, ceramicists, children's book illustrators, tarot card illustrators. So there's all sorts of things coming up. So be sure to check those out. And without further ado, thank you so much, Josh.
Thank you, Sienna. Okay, impressed. You guys came out outside of class in the heat with Dr. Fauci down the hallway. Very impressed. So my background is I'm from the Gulf Coast. I grew up in Pensacola, close to New Orleans, and I got my BFA at the University of West Florida. Spent 6 years there, did it very slowly. And then I moved to Italy and I studied at the Florence Academy of Art for 3 years. I did drawing, painting, and a type of artistic anatomy called écrochet, which involves sculpting. And then I took 2 years off and I just taught around the country. And then I did my master's in the Alfred Dusseldorf painting program. It's split between New York and Germany. I just focused on contemporary movements in art and developing an artistic voice. And I lived in the city for, I guess it's, I don't know, about 3 years. Not long. And I've been a studio assistant for many artists, done art handling, teaching, doing shows, art fairs. You know, I'm in the art world. I also have a podcast. It's called The Painter's Dialectic. I'm the painter and I do dialectic. This is kind of a philosophy involving two people on topics in art in general. As all my students know, I like to tell stories. I tell lots of stories. Ruth loves my stories. So, anyways, this is my art. So today we're going to talk about what good is art? Why do we keep doing it? Does anyone have a... Freddie, hey, what's up? You made it. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, you're welcome.
This is a world famous model. So, anyone want to speak out? Why they do art? What good is art? What about you, Freddie?
I do art because I don't know the life another way to do it. So this is my passion. I enjoy it a lot. So I cannot live without the art.
Right. So art is how you investigate life, how you channel your passion,
Yeah.
and you also do it through fashion. Very
Yeah,
expressive
I do,
through the
yeah.
fashion.
This is part of that.
And your body, you're a figure model. Yes. Yeah. Look at this guy. Anyone else?
Well, I was listening to a podcast today,
Uh-huh.
kind of a psychologist,
Yeah.
and he commented on this instruction and inspiration. But I was thinking about that. I wasn't sure that those aren't sufficient.
Instruction and
Instruction and inspiration.
instruction, inspiration.
I think those words are instruction and inspiration.
Anyone else? Anyone else got something to offer?
So, you walk around the world, you see things, you read, you absorb, and then it stays in you unless you have a way to express and give back or reflect somehow.
Self-expression,
Yeah.
giving back, generosity. Anything else? Anybody? What about you?
To seek harmony or balance.
Seek harmony and balance.
I think what you had written also, I mean, I had done it years ago, but I'm more of a writer.
Yeah.
So, but I think it might be similar in a sense to figure things out. I mean, and I also think the element of play is very important.
Play is so important. Yeah. Yeah, so there's not an absolute reason, right? We're all in a relative state. We all have a perspective. So there's that many reasons for doing art, right? And when we talk about what good is art, I'm going to do some art history, of course, because I always do. The good was always associated with your aim, what you're trying to achieve, right? So your aim can be in line with the good, something that's ultimately beneficial for you and the most others, right? And the actions that lead to that good, we call them virtues in philosophy. So that's personal. The Greeks said that everyone, the ultimate achievement in life is reflecting on what the good is, defining those things for yourself. That's what it meant to be a free individual, right? All the landowning men that got to sit in the polis in Athens, those were the free individuals. They got to engage in philosophy and politics. That was the ultimate sign of liberty in that society. And so today we're going to lounge around and do some philosophy. So my reason for art is self-realization through self-expression. Okay, what does that mean? Self-realization through self-expression. So, self-realization is a term used in Western psychology, philosophy, spirituality, and also in Indian religion. So, that is the definition of it is fulfillment by oneself of the possibilities of one's character or personality. So through your effort, you fully express your potential, right, as a being. That's self-realization in the Western sense. We can also relate that to self-actualization, which comes from Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? That was the ultimate achievement in his hierarchy of needs. Once you solve, basic survival and the ego needs, then you could spend time on self-actualization. In Indian understanding, it's deeper and more spiritual. Self-realization is the liberating knowledge of your true nature. Okay, so like enlightenment. I think of it as this. We live in New York City. You look around at these millions of people that are here. The human has so much potential, right? So much potential to grow in so many ways. Like imagine you have all these seeds, and it depends on your environment that you get put in, and the people you're around, and the circumstances you're under, what grows, what blossoms, right? And in this city you see this extreme expression of the human, right? The full spectrum. Here the spectrum's really big, but in a smaller town, maybe there's not that much expression. But in New York, you can go on the subway and see it all. Every possibility. So within you, you have this unlimited potential, right? So when you self-actualize, those things are coming to bloom, right? So that's self-realization. So what's self-expression? Self-expression is a communication of one's innermost thoughts, feelings, and experiences to others. It's a way of revealing who we are to the world, and it's often done through creative outlets such as writing, art, music, or fashion. Right? So, like you said, bringing what's inside out, right? So those two, you can't have one without the other. So in my view, life ends up becoming like a mirror. You know who you are through your expression. You know who you are by the decisions you make through life, right? Every day. Hey, is this my fiance? Selene. Wherever you want. So anyways, life then, in this understanding, is like a mirror. You only know yourself to the extent that you've had experiences of expressing yourself, right? So art can become this mirror. And my fiance is a laboratory scientist, but she just finished her acting school. And I think was that very hard, switching to acting?
Yeah, it's a whole different thing.
Because it's so personal, right? Art is so personal. And you have to work through all this psychology in order to express and communicate to others. It's extremely challenging. So now why is this important for us? Well, I think we've all lived a bit. As you live, you become habituated. You become stiff. You become inflexible, right? Just think about your morning. Is it the same as the day before? Never? Okay. All right. Always?
The dog has to get out.
The dog has to get out? Like, And then how far into the day is it just routine? When does the routine break? Is the whole week a routine and it just repeats over and over again? Right? And the problem with that is as we become more habituated, our self-expression is limited. Right? We stop growing. We stop having new reflections in our mirror, right, of who we are. So it's very important. This school here, there's all these programs for you to go explore. Who are you when you watercolor paint? Who are you when you're sculpting? Who are you when you're dancing? Who are you in poetry? These are all circumstances that don't involve flying to another country or doing anything extremely physical. Just by engaging in this simple art practice, you're engaging with yourself in a new way and becoming flexible again. When we look at children, they're incredibly flexible, right? You never know what they're going to say or do. They're very spontaneous, right? They're very raw. They don't know good or bad, right or wrong. They just say what's on their mind. They're just expressing. They're going, and they're very creative and playful, right? And imaginative. That's a flexible being. That's what we're losing as we go on and we do our jobs and we deal with life's problems and we gain all these fears and phobias and stresses and anxiety, and we become more aware of this terrifying world we're in. We lose that flexibility. So art, ultimately, for me, is a way to regain that flexibility. So that's the thesis. So let's get to the fun stuff. I have some stories now. Does anyone want to say anything about that? Look at this beautiful thing. When we look back over human history at the pyramids and temples of ancient Egypt, at Hammurabi's code, at the Indus Valley civilizations, at the Mayan codexes, these first instances of human civilization, how do we know who they are? How do we know anything about them? They're all dead, right? We know them through their art. They only have culture in as far as they have art. Their art is that mirror, right? Their art gives them their identity. Their art is their reflection. So this is a bison carved in a reindeer antler. This bison is licking an insect bite. It was sculpted 20,000 years ago in France. It is a fragment of a tool called an atlatl. It's used to throw a spear. So just to appreciate the enormous care in this object. This was sculpted 20,000 years ago.
This itself was the tool of this object?
Yeah, it looks like it broke off, but the spear would fit right there.
Yeah.
So it comes back, and then you whip it, and that'll throw the spear. So the spear making art, anthropologists consider that's what makes us human, right? Is we have this capacity to be creative, to play, to create myths. So not only, is it just an incredible design, and it's tiny. It's like this big, carved into an antler, right, with stone tools. And look at the fur. Look at the attention. And not only that, the thoughtfulness of the pose, right? This is someone who's studying these animals, who loves these animals. And I'm sure that's a very common thing where it bends back to lick a fly bite.
The artist had to adapt the design to the object.
Had to adapt the design. It's an incredibly beautiful, thoughtful piece of art. But is it true that humans are the only ones that do art? No. This was created by a bird. This is by a bird. This is by a bower bird. So this is a dance floor. The male birds will build these elaborate structures and organize objects and then do a dance to attract the females. It's an incredibly intelligent animal. So the people say, this demonstrates its capacity. It's a self-actualized, a self-realized bird, right? It gets these colorful objects to demonstrate its eyesight, right? The variety of objects. It has very good eyesight. It's determined, has a powerful will. It built this enormous structure, and then it dances, right? So it demonstrates that it's the peak of its, group, right? I'm the one that should mate, right?
Where was this located?
Australia, right? Bowerbirds in Australia. Selena knows. You don't remember? It's Australia.
So okay.
This
I saw that.
this is a mandala sculpted by a pufferfish.
Fish.
That's the pufferfish. It wiggles its tail, and it creates these beautiful mandalas to attract a female.
Hmm.
So, like, how beautiful is that? So, there's some evidence, right? Self-realization, self-expression isn't just a human thing. It's a being thing. It's a living thing, right? All these creatures are doing it, but here this is about the right to mate, the right to reproduce. Is that what humans are doing? Probably a lot of them, yeah. Probably anyone in their BFA is doing that. That's not the full story. I'll give some more evidence. Back to the prehistoric art. This is one of my favorite paintings. This is in France. So these are about 20,000 years old. The artist puts clay in their mouth, has a little straw, bamboo straw, and spray paints their hand onto the cave wall. I don't know. What do you guys think when you look at that? Is this about reproduction? Anyone? Any ideas what it's about?
Recording
Calling heaven?
their having been there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I lived. I'm your ancestor. Don't forget me. This is a death project. This is a type of immortality through an object. Transferring your essence into something more permanent than this physical form. We can still see this. 20,000 years, that handprint's been there. So I think we can see that there's a big difference when we go from the bowerbird, the pufferfish, into the human, about what art is about. This is Heka. So let's go to our first civilization. Heka is the creative force in nature. In English we call it the god of magic, but that's not actually the case. Heka, unlike Cyrus and Horus and Isis, isn't that well known, but he's ubiquitous. He's in every myth, he's in everything. Because anytime you're making something, you're using the creative force. So the Egyptians are moving out of this hunter and gathering lifestyle, one of the earliest civilizations, one of the first written languages, organizing, and they're creating, this is a word back then, this is a word for that creative force. Now, what's interesting, so Heka is the god of magic and medicine in ancient Egypt. So keep that in mind too, medicine and creative force. So this is the Egyptian creation myth. So there was an infinite sea of potential called Nun. Heka was involved. Heka, the creative force, raised this mound out of the ocean of Nun, and Ra rose out of the water with it. And when Ra was a hermaphroditic being, right, both male and female, and Ra coughed, and that created water and air, and the air and water created earth and the fire of heavens, right? And so Heka was there even before the gods, right? It is the creative potential. This is the god Thoth. Thoth is the scribe. He's also related to magic. one of the most important deities in the Egyptian canon. And he's an artist. There he is writing, right? Thoth was the founder of mathematics, of writing, of images, of medicine, of magic, all these critical parts of life. So what's very important is that Heka, the creative force, is used in every word that you speak, in every gesture of your body, in everything that you write, in every image. And when you're the one doing those things, you're empowering some force in nature, right? You're using your creative force to change reality. And that impacts the entire universe, right? They believed in their universe that they had to separate the heaven and earth God were in love with each other, and they had to put air in between that. The air God had to hold them apart, right? To keep them separate. So Nut, this woman, it's like this with all the stars on her. And if anything went wrong, that bubble could collapse and everything would go back into the potential of noon. So this fragile society, just coming out of hunter-gathering, they had some real-world problems, okay? For them, the most terrifying thing they could imagine to represent chaos is a giant cobra. What causes more chaos to an ancient Egyptian than a giant cobra, right? So we got to think back then, these people are living on the Nile. Every year it floods. If it floods too little, they starve. If it floods too much, their houses get destroyed and they drown, right? And surrounding them is a brutal desert. It's full of scorpions. The children are dying all the time from scorpion stings. There's mosquitoes, ants, snakes. They're terrified of snakes. Viruses, bacterial infections, warring groups. It was a rough place, and imagine the heat. So Egyptian life was all about stopping Apep, the god of chaos, and maintaining order. This is Ma'at, the god of order, and that ostrich feather represents truth. Okay? So Ma'at, all magic had to support Ma'at. It was up to every citizen to empower, to put their creative energy into maintaining Ma'at. Or not only would the civilization collapse, but the entire universe would collapse. Nut, the air would go away in between Geb and Nut, and everything would go back to the sea of noon. So the priesthood, the magicians, all their magic, every day they would do a magic with a clay snake representing Apep, and they crush it under their feet, right? To keep the forces of chaos out of society. As an artist, you could not sculpt the parts of the myth where the gods are being overrun by chaos, right? So there's one where Osiris gets cut up to about 17 pieces and scattered throughout the Nile. You can't depict that, because that's empowering Apep, forces of chaos. That's bad for society to see. We have to empower only the good images, because the greatest magic was sculpting into stone. So now we can see it's becoming more complex, this art. We're using it as a mirror, right, to know who we are, but we're also using it to subconsciously guide a civilization, right, to create an order, to create the first society. So one of the things that really helped, this image is from the Book of the Dead. There's many books of the dead. This is the weighing of the hearts. Over there we have the feather of Ma'at, truth, order. And over there's the heart. So here's a recently deceased person with the Undertaker god, Anubis, and he's holding his life force. All right, he's holding his life in his hand, if he gets to survive into eternity or not. They put his heart on the scale, and if his heart is heavier then the feather of Ma'at, then it gets devoured by this terrifying crocodile head, lion body, hippo butted monster, right? Pretty terrifying. And you don't get to continue, your energy is recycled. But look at Anubis here. What's he doing? He's tilting the scales. He's helping them out. See, this is magic. Through this drawing, they're controlling what the gods do. He knows he's not going to weigh up to this, the feather Ma'at. Better get the magician to draw him tilting the scales. And here's Thoth, recording it all, and here he is passing. This is magic. He made it through. And all of this are the instructions on what he has to do. And they tuck it in the linen that he gets wrapped in so his Ba can fly back and read it when he needs it. And then go back to the afterlife. So are you starting to see what art is for?
Did he need to have a heavier heart or a lighter?
A lighter heart. This is where all the judgment myths originate. So we're starting to get some proof now of what art is, what art does. Actually, these are nice. So there's one more thing about Ma'at. There's these confessions of Ma'at, 42 negative responses. So in the afterlife, you get asked these questions at this weighing. Here are some of them. You have to say no to all these. Or in this case, yes. I have not committed sin. It's the first question. I have not committed robbery with violence. I have not stolen. I have not slain men and women. I have not stolen food. I have not swindled offerings. I have not stolen from God. I have not told lies. So they probably hear these from the priesthood and they go, look at this, this is where you're going to be. You got to sell that to that guy. Okay, so here's Serket, the goddess of healing venomous stings and bites in Egyptian mythology, right? The deification of the scorpion. So this is really interesting. So they were using art. So scorpion stings were killing tons of children, right? So what they do is they kind of barter with these nature spirits. They're like, all right, we're going to deify you, and we're going to make you the god of the vital force entering the body, the breath. You're the giver and taker of the breath, right? So through that deification, they can go to the temple and make offerings to this god and have some type of control over this thing that's out of control, right? A way of managing mental illness, right? This is Anubis once again. So he's a jackal. Why is he a jackal? Well, they bury their dead in the desert, and at night the jackals would come and dig up the bodies and eat them. Right? Imagine how horrible that must have been. So what do? They deify this guy to get some type of control over him. And, make him into a nice guy. Right? That's going to help out the dead. You see how they're managing this? So let's go forward in time to Greek-occupied Egypt. This is a little terrifying. So now we're getting to Greek magic. This is an object sculpted in wax of a bound woman. This is a love charm. How can I make this woman love me and never leave me? Right? So the society's advanced if this is what they're worried about. Now they're not worried about lions and hippo attacks. They're worried about love now. And so he sculpted this bound woman and put iron rods into her. Right? Or there's a lot of weird magic at this time. If you wanted to kill someone, you sculpt another bound figure, you dig out the stomach, and you put their hair in it, and you put the note on the back, and you put that in a box and lock it. So you're seeing how art is used, this imagination in art. Another, back then you had to have a lot of kids, because a lot of them are going to die, and someone's got to take care of you. So fertility was a major thing. So this is a fertility magic right here. And see, she's got the child, and he's He's bringing in the things. She successfully got pregnant. So they used art to control things that were out of control, to maintain order, to deal with anxiety, to deal with, the tragedies of life, to have connection. Okay, let's keep going forward in time. Here's Homer. Familiar with him? The great Greek poet. So something interesting happens now. Homer goes, okay, let's revamp all these nature spirits and make it more relatable to people living in a modern society at that time. And so they made them human-like. So this is called anthropomorphic. Okay, so you have gods that have human-like qualities, that cheat and lie and do all these things, and you have human-like gods. You have the heroes. Why do you do that? Same thing, different age. Now we got the theater. How do you get a mass of rowdy, illiterate people to work in harmony, to have morals, to not cause chaos in society? Theater, spectacle, put on a show. The philosopher writes a play, but he doesn't give a boring speech like this. He creates characters, and you look at them, and there's music, and there's drama, and they're opening up your emotions, and you simulate in your mind who you want to be. Do you want to be the villain? Or do you want to be the hero? Right? Here, the mask. Plato, in Plato's Republic, he talks about art. He's very wary of it, especially poetry. Did not like poetry. Because you're being persuasive through pathos, through emotion, which is the most dangerous type because you're not involving any reasoning. Does that sound familiar to you? And then imagine, this is in Nashville. This is a recreation of the temple with Athena, the Acropolis. So imagine you're some olive farmer. You walk up that hill to this incredible temple. You go there maybe once a year. It's full of incense and smoke, maybe chanting. And you see this sculpture where the soul of Athena actually comes and resides. You can actually encounter the soul of wisdom, and in her hand is Nike. Look at this scale. Can you imagine how powerful that is? Art, there isn't a society without art. Art was critical to maintaining order. Here's a later version. So I want to introduce another idea, theoria, in the Greeks. It comes to the word theoria, to look, but theoria was to look at a spectacle, like theater. So we get the word theater from, so that's where we get the word theory. Theoria, it's a type of contemplation through sight. And in the early days, the only type of contemplation worth doing was contemplating the divine. Right? So standing in front of this, the artwork awakens the divine qualities, the seeds, if you remember, that potential in the person. They think it's outside of them, but they're having an artistic experience that awakens the divinity inside of them. And through that contemplation, through that comparison, not with a nature spirit, but with a human, right, of their potential, they can evolve into that. That was the ultimate in art. Yeah?
Where is this, in Tennessee? What is this?
Nashville.
And what's the structure? What is it?
It's just a replica of the Parthenon in a park.
Really?
It makes absolutely no sense why it's there. Center Nashville. Yeah, and I'm sure many of you have been to this. I mean, this is art. This awakens the soul. You know, this brings you towards the highest ideals. It's almost unimaginable to simulate in your mind how this was created or how a person could come up with all this. You know, this is what art is for. All right, so trigger warning, I'm about to show an upsetting image from World War II to show you the danger of art. Okay, so if that triggers you, feel free to step out. This is Nazi architecture. So deeply conditioned now for thousands of years of people to this historic architecture. When you put people inside of a building like this or inside of that huge space, that cathedral, has a unifying effect. You naturally feel something bigger than yourself, that you're part of something. And so now we can see what Plato was warning us about, right? That power of art, that power to belong, that power to put off the forces of chaos, which the Germans at the time were beaten down, had ego wounds, and wanted to be empowered, right? The art did that. And I'm going to show another one. Look at this deification. The same language. The light, the sun has always been the source of truth and love, right? Look at how they use this symbol. Everyone's looking towards the light. This is kitsch art. This is manipulation. This is a threat. But has America done anything like this? Not America. This is Jackson Pollock. During the Cold War, the Nazis, the Soviets, were using academic art. We had to figure out what was going to be our mirror. What was going to be the art objects that express us? Well, the CIA funded exhibitions of the abstract expressionists. Here's a cowboy, right? Wild, blue jean wearing, drinking cowboy figures, slinging paint. We have freedom of expression here, right? This is a picture from the Venice Biennale at that time. These are USIA agents. USIA was the information agency that created propaganda about America during the Cold War. To win the Venice Biennale, they had to get these paintings there in the last hour. And so they're loading it onto this and floating it down. And we won last minute. Rauschenberg won the Venice Biennale, right? Establishing America as the center of the art world, right? So art has enormous power. Here's today's Theoria. Here's today's programming. This is what kids watch. Same superheroes, right? Just like the Egyptians. What do kids do? They dress up like these guys. They act them out. They're being conditioned by the ideals of that society, through the mirror of art. All right. So I'm done with that, the history. I'll get into my history now. Anyone want to say anything about that? Isn't it so we can have proof now? We have proof of what art has done, what art has been. But what's it mean on a personal level? So I'm going to talk about my experience now as personal evidence. So when I was 16, I drowned and I had a near-death experience. I was in a very bad car accident, and I witnessed a person suddenly die. Very gruesome death. And so at 16, I was thrust into existential thought. I was very depressed. I began drinking, and I became an alcoholic. And, I loved art. Art was fun. It brought me some peace, but I didn't really care about a lot. I was very lucky. I got accepted into the Florence Academy of Art. Here's me at the Florence Academy doing anatomy. But also when I moved to Florence, I studied with this lady here, Roshi Iten Shinyo. I became ordained in Zen Buddhism. I didn't want to deal with God or an afterlife or anything like that. I know Zen just focused on living well. I wanted to learn how to live well, how to become ordered. And Shinyo told me, I came there. She's like, yeah, you'll do great. Just come here. You're going to sit like this. You're going to focus on your breath, and you're going to look at this wall. I did that for a minimum of an hour every day for 2 years. I learned Japanese. I learned how to do the rituals and everything. At the same time, I was doing this very rigorous art training. So I'd go there at night, and I'd be here all day. And art and meditation are linked for me, right? So the interesting thing about that type of painting, here's my still life, was you realize, after 3 years of doing this all day long, just trying to paint what you're seeing, you start to understand your perception. And you start to understand that in order to describe your perception, you can't paint what you see. You have to make a lot of things up. It's a lot of tricks. It's a lot of manipulation. Okay, so here's one of my paintings from that time. It's an idea called chiaroscuro. If we delete the information from the shadow and just put information in the light, and we don't put any white paint here, it creates an effect that feels like light. There's chiaroscuro, there's sfumato. Instead of drawing a hard line around the body, we do a blurred edge, right? And it kept going. You learn that you don't actually see 3 dimensions, you see in 2 dimensions. Vision's 2-dimensional, and you're projecting concepts out over everything you're looking at all the time. There's a door, there's a person, here's a table. I mean, you can look at everything here, and I bet you know exactly what it feels like to touch it, what temperature it is, maybe what it smells like, because you have this history of living and doing that's projected through your vision. And that's the scary thing, right? When I'm meditating and I'm getting in tune with all that, is that you realize you do that to everyone around you. A lot of things that you don't like about the people around you are things you don't like about yourself. You're not actually seeing the person, right? Am I actually seeing Selene, the person I first met, right? Am I seeing my mother and my father? Am I seeing a concept? Am I seeing my friend? More importantly, am I seeing myself? Do I still see the soul in my eyes and the mystery in me? Or have I become a concept? Have I become an ego? Right? So, very important thing for just a simple practice, right? Zen was all about simple things, learning how to sit. Spent a long time learning how to sit, learning how to walk, learning how to breathe. Here I was learning how to see. Once you deprogram your vision and your senses, they're so wonderful. We wouldn't have to pay for fancy TV and all this stuff if we could just deconceptualize our vision and just go look at a flower. Or just go outside and feel the breeze on our skin. Or just getting into your hearing. Some of my favorite parts of meditation is my memories of just hearing the things around me for years. The birds, the people on the street, the bus, the people upstairs. I have all these memories of every place I lived. Because I spent that time, getting into my awareness. This is my thesis project. And then I went, let's go to my MFA now. So I learned all that stuff about classical painting. I became highly internalized. I became sober, got some mental health. And then I went and I didn't know what my art was about. I became a good craftsman. So I thought, why not use the language of the old masters but take out all the content and just see what these pieces are? What are these pieces that we've been manipulating societies and building societies with for thousands of years, right? And so we have light, we have form, we have all the familiar things, but what's happening here, right? We have a persona, a mask, right? We have a basic world. And so it's just emptying out the myths. Here's a painting I did of a fresco in Italy by Piero della Francesca, but I sculpted it and I projected it on to a still life stage, and then I painted that. So it's a projection over a reality. I'm starting to be able to talk about meditation. Starting to talk about my understanding of my perception, right? It's my projection over the physical reality, right? An image, imaginal, over the physical. Right, here it is again. An image projected over the physical, right? This intertwining. I started doing these experiments when I moved to New York City. Anyone recognize what this is? Any idea? This is a light coming through my eyes, my eyelids, when they're closed, and that's me imagining my sister's face. So all that internal awareness, I started using it. Could I paint what's going on in my head? Is there a pattern? This is one of my more successful experiments. I found that when you close your eyes, there's this thing called Eigengrau. It's a visual static. If you're in a dark room, there will be a static, a lot like TV static. And if you touch your eye, there'll be a glowing dot. It's called a phosphene. So these green dots represent that Eigengrau, and then I was imagining a face. And I would sit on my zafutan for meditation. I had an eye mask, and I'd imagine that same face and try to remember, and then I'd come out and I'd paint it. And it took a long time. But I started developing this language for internal vision, right? What it looks like for me to imagine. And then here's my current body of work. So now I have that language, I have my Eigengrau, this inner world, what my inner visual space looks like. But now I'm going to use it for theoria, contemplation through sight. This is the contemplation of the self. So here's my conception of self. It's a Greek bronze. We get our idea of the self from the Greeks. And they used to have inlaid eyes, but you can see the eyes have fallen out. It's a hollow sculpture. And it's a woman reflecting, a common motif. So there's two selves in this. If you look at the ratio, it's the golden ratio, which is an infinity. So this is an infinite space of imaginative potential, maybe like a sea of noon in Egypt. And then we have this concept that I identify with. Both together. This contemplation of the self. And then I did a contemplation of metaphysics. So here's the Platonic forms. These are like the first atoms, what they thought everything was made of. That's fire. That one's water. The cube is earth. And here's the Egyptian legs in this mental space. Subject, object. Here's the artist's journey. So I sculpted here, or this is made with clay from my hometown, my beginning, the yellow ochre. I have the snake, chaos, Epep, right? And then the golden sun, it's a mask, right? It's a personification of this light of truth piercing it, piercing the fear, piercing the chaos. And above that is a projection. Recognize this? Nike, the goddess of victory, and the hand of Athena, right? So you're called on. You have to conquer this fear. You have to conquer this chaos within yourself. And you're called on by your highest emotions, right? You have a wing, the higher emotions that you want to connect with, you want to unify with. Think Luke Skywalker. How does Luke Skywalker begin his journey? Leia. And she's a projection, right? There's always the damsel in distress. The woman in the bell tower. The knight has to slay the dragon to rescue the damsel, right? And then here's the pyramid, and there's the creative potential, right? So that's the artist's journey. And so here's the last one. This is contemplation of recrystallization. This is reforming the self. After you break it down, and understand yourself, you can choose who you want to be. Right? Self-realization. This is my dream of self-realization. So all those Platonic solids are now golden and balanced, in harmony, in order. And it's a new self that's free from the earth. Right? It's pointing to his head, and he has his hand on this. And the world's just a projection. It's no longer physical anymore. The world's a projection. And then here's my current painting. And this is the entire journey of self-actualization. My journey began with understanding death. This is Seti the first, the pharaoh. He's in red. This is the solar plexus, the emotions. This is thought. This is earth and water, the conscious and subconscious. Earth is in the center. Then we have thought, and we have intuition, and then the unification. So you see, I use my paintings for contemplation. Through this expression and through analyzing my life experiences, I use it as a mirror to decide where I'm going. And that's where I want to go.
There's an image in the right dark area.
Ready?
Up above that, yeah. What is
It's kind of like a meditator. Yeah. But that's what I got for you guys.
is this oil?
It's oil. Hopefully that wasn't too long. Anyone have any questions? Or? Huh? Oh yeah, if you want to see some of the academic work, I have it up here. These drawings are demos I did in class.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh.
A portrait sketch. There's one from Florence. Yeah. Here's some figure drawings from the morning class. But yeah, I hope this gives you like some proof of the importance of art, and hopefully you see like how I'm using it. It's not about anything else, right? I don't have to go buy an answer. I don't have to go buy entertainment. I'm creating. I'm using my creative potential to understand myself and evolve through imaginal experiences, through reflecting on my life, through meditation. It doesn't cost anything. You don't have any responsibilities to anyone else. It's your own space that you're in complete control of, right? And I think I told you the other day, you don't have to show anyone. It's no one else's business, right? This is very vulnerable art. This is my deepest beliefs and things like that, you know? You don't have to show anyone. But through art, you can regain your flexibility. And you can start clearing out your senses and noticing all the beauty and the mystery around you. And right, and you don't have to know so much. You can just be in awe, like those children. Wow. That's a clear perception. People say, wow, I have a clear perception. They're seeing it. Like, what the hell is all this? It's incredible.
So how many paintings do you do in a year if you work on multiple ones at a time, since it's about reflection?
Those paintings, that's 3 years. Yeah, I'm going to finish this one. I'm making some smaller ones. I'm hoping to have about like a 12-piece show. And then I got to find a place to show that. A lot of the galleries are here are tiny, and I got these giant paintings, so I don't know. I may do one down in Chinatown in a year or two. But that's how it is. For now, I'm just reflecting on my life and going into this history and trying to understand what's happening and entertain my students.
You have a studio you paint in, or at home, or here?
I have a studio. I have a private studio in East New York. I have a giant window. It's the only reason I'm there is that window. Beautiful window. Yeah, and that just having a studio here is so expensive. I feel like it's a big life achievement. That's enough. I'm good. I got my studio, making my paintings. What you want?
Do you get more catharsis out of like, conceptualizing the art or crafting it?
I try not to do cathartic art. Because I'm trying to be a professional artist, right? That means my art has to be relatable, and you see, like, you go to open mic, that's catharsis. You know, people talking about just dumping their emotions out. But I'm creating a myth for Theoria. I'm creating my own myth. something hopefully uplifting, something hopefully to keep people living and engaged and maintaining ma'at, right? So this is my mythology. And I plan on writing a book explaining all this. But my future paintings are going to be real meditations. So they're not going to be conceptual. They're just going to be geometry, a lot of geometry, symbolic geometry that you can just go into. But these are very conceptual.
What do you see as the starting point to like start living this way and kind of like lose the ego a bit and put the pen to paper and create something like this?
Oh man.
Do you start with like the meditation?
Yeah, start meditating. It's very simple. You can just sit in a chair, put your hands on your lap, and the meditation posture is all about balance. The spine is flexed, the stomach's relaxed. Right? You don't want to be laying on a bed. You want that balance of forces in your body, and you just focus on the breath, just breathe normally. And if you start thinking, go thought. Start thinking thought. If you can keep that awareness, you'll learn a lot about yourself. And a lot of it isn't great. You start seeing who you really are as you start becoming more aware. That's not always fun, right? I stopped trying to do brilliant things, and I just start trying to not make mistakes. Oh my God, how can I not do something stupid? I become more aware, wow, I'm doing all these stupid, offensive things all the time. How can I do less of that? If you really want to go into doing this, stop watching movies, stop listening to music, stop reading books, and set a couple hours a day just to play and sketch and write, and don't let anyone see it for a year or two. And when you come out, you're going to be an artist. You're going to have your own artistic voice. You're going to know so much about who you are that no art school, that no art teacher could have given you, or a book. The best teacher is your life. This thing right here, life. And people ignore it. They waste it. They're not paying attention. The next best teacher is your intuition, your conscience. It's telling you all the time. And then there's people like us. We're in the same plane. I'm a messed up, crazy guy, right? And a lot of people like to pretend through their ego that there's something special. But you should listen to life first and yourself and then to other people. I think that'll get you really far.
Are you still in touch with your Zen teacher?
We had a little bit of a falling out. Yeah, she's very hard. She wanted me to fully ordinate. I have a lay ordination, but she wanted me to ordinate and go to Japan and be under her thumb. And I didn't want to do that. Buddha wasn't part of an organization. Buddha did exactly what I said. He just went out and figured it out. He sat under a tree. Just went into himself. I think when you start formatting things to an organization, the organization wants to perpetuate itself. Then you get bureaucracy, and then you get egos, and it starts declining just like the Egyptian civilization. The Egyptians started out beautiful. It's about protection and order and community. And you saw it at the end about magic and manipulation and power games and, look at Cleopatra's life, manipulation, right? But I think, I don't know, in my opinion, the greatest spiritual path is just love. Paying attention to love, learning how to love more, trying to see the unity, right? If we all have that potential, right? That unity is enlightenment, is realizing that you're unified with everything. There's not a separate self. That means that you're not just a part of the good stuff, you're a part of the bad. That all those people that you hate in the other political party or the soldiers that are fighting, all these people are also you. That's your potential. You have that capacity under certain situations to express in that way. And so the spiritual path isn't about, the saying is know thyself, not improve thyself. Not positive think thyself, it's know thyself. Know the good and the bad of yourself and accept it. And you do the spiritual practice not to eliminate those parts of you, but to control which ones grow, to maintain order, ma'at, balance, right? In every religion, there's a balance. In the Jewish religion, there's Kabbalah, the tree of life. It has two pillars, the earth, the heavenly, and the middle path. In Buddhism, there's the middle path. In Christianity, there's the three crosses. There's Jesus, the man hung over here looking towards Jesus, the man hung over here looking away. Balance. You don't want to go to an extreme. So there's people that we hate, they just don't have an open heart. They're not bringing all that love. They don't understand the unity. If you understand that unity when you have a child, you understand that child's a part of you, you can't hurt it. It's easy to love your family. It's easy to love your friends. But it gets harder the more expanded it gets. Right? You know, that up there is about seeing everyone as you. That becomes the new ego. Every tree, every rock, every person that you encounter, good or bad, you can see that light inside of them.
Can you talk a little about the classes you teach here?
Yeah, and if y'all need to go, feel free to go. You don't have to stay. Yeah. Thank you, Eileen. Thank you. Yeah, so classical drawing and painting, the figure, is I teach the sight-size method. It's a tradition I inherited, and it's directly transmitted from the Jerome studio at the École des Beaux-Arts. So I try to teach that, and that's what got me into my perception. It's École des Beaux-Arts was the biggest academy in Paris.
That's the name of the method too?
The method is called sight-size. It was created by Titian in 1500 and passed down. We do that. These were sight-sized. And you just try to arrive at the truth of what you're seeing. It's not very expressive, it's not very artistic, but it's about getting to the truth of perception, being able to accurately record what you're seeing. And for me, it is a meditative practice. The sculpture class I teach is also that. And I'd like to get more into anatomy, but it's very rigorous. But anatomy is a beautiful reflection on the body and on existence and on what you are. Drawing and painting from imagination starts getting you into this imaginal space. But you really need skills to have the freedom to do this. I try to introduce that stuff that was reserved for the highest level of students in a very simple way, and we just don't worry about the technique. We just do the practice, perspective, how to calculate light, how to calculate temperature, composition. Meditative painting, I show how to do meditation while you're painting, how to do meditation for self-reflection. But that one's kind of experimental, figuring it out. And then, we got beginner drawing, which I haven't taught yet, but I'll teach that, I think, in 2 weeks. No?
What I think is about that everything is inside us. What I do is looking for meditate what you're talking about, or find.
Yeah.
What are we? Who are we?
Yeah.
Who we are. So.
In the Renaissance, science, the subjective and the objective was not separate. Your scientific operation to make this medicine also involved your imagination and your will, and they weren't separate. Or you might consult, the astrology to see if it's the right time to make this medicine. But Galileo was the first one to say, why don't we just let's separate these two and see if we can make more progress this way. So Galileo started the science, but now that's become the culture. We know the world really well from this supposedly objective perspective, but if you read relativity and quantum mechanics, it's all based on perspective, you can't get around it. But we've denied the subjective. That started coming back with psychology and Jung. But from the meditator's perspective, the only reality is mind. All I'm seeing is myself. All I'm seeing is my projections, my perceptions. There isn't really a physical reality. There's just mind, right? If I change my mind, I change my experience, my reality. And that's where flexibility is really important. That's why these Zen masters are very wild guys, very unpredictable, radical people, because they spend their life becoming free. But yeah, I think that's a hard idea for people. But it's kind of obvious if you think about it, you know? All your visions right here. All your visions happening right there, right? It's nowhere else. All your hearings right here. All your touch is right here. All your thoughts are right here. All your emotions are right there. Anybody?
It's about our own power, you know, to whether you're thinking or your mind, because you are owner.
Yeah.
You are doing what you want.
Yeah, you have Heka, you have that creative potential, and you're welcome. See ya. So you express that through your decision making, right? If you lack awareness, then you may be perpetuating harmful things, which, you know, here I am, plastic. It's harmful. Who made these clothes? Hopefully adults, you know? Where did the cobalt in this computer come from? Hopefully not slave labor in Africa. We like to think that we're good, right? We like to feel like we're the good guys, but as you become more aware, you go, where did this come from? How is my lifestyle affecting other people? Am I actually a good person? No, not really. And then you watch your thoughts. How many negative, critical thoughts do you have about other people during the day or towards yourself? How great is your capacity to love? Right? How patient are you with that annoying person? Right? It's very hard. Very hard practice. People don't want to look at it. Yeah, y'all feel free to go. You're not held captive. Yeah, go. Thank you so much for coming, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.